Okay, so for task that you're talking about here, so page 3 in the higher booklet, this first little block, okay, you're being asked to do it in 1 point perspective. Now what I think does throw people is that you're shown it in isometric to start with, okay? You're basically wanting to ignore that and just build it up the way you would normally build up a 1 point perspective drawing. So thinking about the front view, okay? Which in this case, the front view is looking kind of onwards at it into this section here, okay? So this is kind of going to be what we're ending up with, and what I'm going to do is have a wee shot at just kind of trying to show you through it a wee bit more quickly, clear some of my stuff out of the way. So the way I would probably do this if I were doing it in 1 point perspective, and the way I did it on this sketch here, is to build it up in kind of 2 blocks. So I'm taking this big block to start with because it's one that is just kind of built up at nice 90-degree angles, and is fairly easy to build up in 1 point perspective. Okay, so what we do need is our vanishing point. So we need that vanishing point 1. And then what we do want to build up as well is just kind of that basic crate for our first object. Okay, so as you'll have seen in some of the other slides, you should kind of aim to use this crating technique just while you build up the basis of a drawing, the kind of foundation of it. And then once you're happy with the kind of object itself, then you can move on and start darkening up your lines. Okay, generally you do want to start really lightly when you're sketching these. I just can't do it too lightly because then you won't see what's happening on my page. So first off, I'm just wanting to build what that front view would look like. So if I'm looking at just this object here, front on, it's going to be pretty much a square. Okay, what I can then do is take my points back to my vanishing point. So you will need a ruler for this. Now, it doesn't have to actually be a ruler, it could be a straight edge, so maybe the edge of a book or a random box that you've got kicking about, just anything that's a straight line really to help you out. So again, you want to keep these lines nice and light to start with. I'm just doing them a little bit darker so you can see what's happening on my page. My next step is I want to kind of think about how deep this box is going to be. Okay, so I can see that it's roughly sort of the same width as it is deep. So I'm going to kind of stick to something along those lines. Now, because this has been drawn in perspective, it might not necessarily look exactly the same, but you've kind of got to just use your eye there and kind of build up what you think looks best. So at the minute I've got that initial crate, and it's drawn in 1 point perspective because that's what I'm kind of looking at. So I've got the original there, which is isometric, and I've drawn it essentially in 1 point perspective. So my next step is going to be to cut out this little notch bit, which I know is going to sit somewhere in there. Okay, now you could do this kind of with the ruler and just trying to keep it nice and square. In fact, that's quite a nice gap. Or you could freehand this bit as long as you're using the ruler to take back to your vanishing point. So that's that little bit boxed in, and again I'm drawing a little bit darker than I would hope that you will be. This is a pencil, by the way, it's just a weird looking one. Then all my points going back to the vanishing point, again keeping them as light as you can at this stage, just until we're ready to start darkening up the item. Okay, so at the front I can see that this drops down, so at the back where that corner is, I want to make sure to drop that down as well so that I'm keeping that position there, and it's very, very tiny, but we do see a little tiny bit of that little kind of mark at the back there. Okay, so that's our kind of first block built up, and now what we can start to do is think about building up this second little block here. Okay, so again, it's maybe not super clear on my camera, but I built this up as a big cube to start with, so you can see that my lines kind of, or potentially can see that my lines come right forward in a basic cube, and then I've chopped out the sections once I'm happy with it. Okay, and that's that crating technique that we looked at a wee bit earlier in the slides. So first thing I want to do is decide how far back I'm coming. So you can see this doesn't necessarily start right at the front of the object, it does come back a little bit. Okay, so what I would do, my wee booklet's falling apart, is kind of going, right, okay, maybe I want to come back about that far to start this next object. And again, I just want to draw that front view, and again I'm kind of using my eye and going, right, doesn't quite come up to the top, I've got a wee bit left there. So I'm just building in that wee front rectangle. Again, I want to keep my lines horizontal, so I can pop that in and just roughly building up that front view for now. Something like that. Okay, now we have got some wee lines behind there, we just want to essentially ignore them just now, okay, which is why it's really handy if you've been drawn kind of nice and lightly as you do this. Okay, as I say, I've drawn a wee bit darker so you can make it out on the camera. So, ignoring everything else on the page, I just want to focus on this new block that we're building up now, okay, so the slightly smaller one. So first step, take it all back to the vanishing point so that I've got this kind of little cube that I then want to start working and shaping. Okay, now I know it goes just to the back of the object itself, it doesn't go any further, so at this point here, where it hits the original cube, that's where I'm then going to run over and just take my back edge to. Again, making sure those lines are parallel, so vertical lines staying vertical or as close as they can be, and your horizontal ones staying the same. Okay, so again, we've started with this little basic cube. Now, to make this easier for you to kind of see, I'm just going to rub out my projection lines or my construction lines that I've got inside there, okay? Just so you can see just the cube that I'm working with. And again, I'm going to darken it up a bit. I don't want you to darken it up at this stage, this is just so you can make it out on my camera. So, that's my second cube, and now I want to, again, as I've created it out, start kind of cutting into it. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of chop off this little bit. So if I were to bring this forward and start it just as its wee cube, it would look something like this. So I'm going to cut the slope at the front first. Now it's up to you, you could do that or you could do the little chop out bit, it's totally up to you. The way I did it on my first one was taking this angle. So what I want to do is start to go, right, okay, at the minute it's straight up and down, and I want to just think about that angle that's going back. So from the bottom, maybe it goes back about that much. I'm then carrying it straight across because I know it runs across, and again I'm trying to keep that as parallel with my edges as I can, and then just joining it back up at the front. So I've now got that slope built onto it, and I can start thinking about my chunk that's taken out of it. So I'm just going to kind of sketch it on this top face here, so this kind of top rectangle. I'm kind of going to try and split it up so it's relatively even on either side, and then I'm going back to my vanishing point. Okay, so this bit is a wee bit trickier because we've now got this little slope built in. All we would do is, instead of going straight down the way like we would have if it was a normal cube, we would just make sure we're kind of keeping those parallel lines. So I know that my slope runs at this angle, so I want to run at that same angle. So what you can see I'm doing is I kind of run my ruler so that it's at that angle, and then I just slide it across to keep it parallel. And then deciding how deep this little cut goes, I'm going to try and make it sort of similar to what I've got on that first one. So something like that. And then it's just a case of taking this new corner here. Again, this front edge should be nice and light because you've drawn it all nice and lightly, but as I say, mine's a bit darker. Taking that bottom corner back, and then dropping down just to the back bit, and then straight over. Okay, so that's me got my kind of basic building blocks there, and it's now just a case of kind of picking out the lines that we want to kind of make our final lines. Okay, a wee bit trickier with my one because, as I say, I have drawn it dark to begin with. Let's see if I've got a thicker pencil there. Not really. I'm just going to try and make my lines really quite dark here. So I'm just darkening up anything that is kind of, now I've built it up, a final line. So one that will definitely be there. It's not just part of my building blocks, essentially. So at the back there, this one just goes to there. At this point, it's just about picking up lines that you know exist, essentially. Okay, it will be quite busy when you're doing 1 point perspective. 2 point perspective will be super busy as well when you move on to those blocks. But as long as you just kind of take your time, and I know I'm doing it quite quickly, I've practiced this loads, okay? You may well be a wee bit slower, kind of just picking out the kind of lines that you know are final lines, and that's absolutely fine, okay? However long it takes you is totally okay. You will, I promise, you get faster as you go, okay? So I've darkened up that first little box there. You can see my original box. Now, as I say, Mine is quite dark to start with. Yours will look, let me try and lighten up a bit. Yours will look a lot less kind of clunky than mine, I would hope. Okay, I'm going to go back to this first block now and try and darken that up as well. Now this one should be a wee bit easier because I've not got any sloping surfaces. It's very much just a cube with another cube cut out of it, essentially. So I'm going to go around my first face, or my front face first. That's a tongue twister. So I'm just darkening up the lines. Now again, when you go to darken this up and do your outlines, you don't necessarily have to use the ruler. You could just do it freehand and just go over the bits that you know are definite lines. But I'm just going for using the ruler, keeping it nice and straight. These are just sketches, so they don't have to be an absolute masterpiece, okay? I just want you to get used to using that kind of pictorial style that we're working with, okay? So I'm going, oh, pressing so hard I'm snapping my pencil. So I'm just going over all my wee final lines. And that's me. So where people might well trip up is, and it's kind of easy to do that, is by looking at this 3D object and going, okay, there's my 3D object, drawing that, and then starting taking the points back to the vanishing point, okay? The way you want to do it is, as I say, think about each individual face. So there's a face, let's draw that, front on, and then take it back. There's my next face, so we'll create it out, back to vanishing point.